Hi, I'm Zoe Daniel, and my topic for today is going to be the Marvel Cinematic Universe and their differing representations of gender and race. Um, Before I kind of get into my analysis, I wanted to begin with just a brief overview of a few theories that I think are important. So the first is the social learning theory. This was coined by Albert Bandura, and he kind of, through this theory, he highlights the importance that many different factors have on our own behavior. And so specifically, like our environment that we grew up in, our exposure to like the media, whether that's social media or like film and television, and like people that we're around, all really shape our behavior. We learn from others and we learn from things that we see. Um, Another important theory is the social comparison theory, which was coined by Leon Festinger. And through this, he kind of states that people have like an innate and an inherent drive to really compare themselves to others and like evaluate themselves kind of based off of how they think that they measure up to others. And these two theories can kind of lead to gender role stress and conflict, which is kind of like a state when somebody's supposed gender roles that they feel or whoever they are inside doesn't really necessarily match up or adhere to the stereotypical or traditional gender roles. So to kind of start off my presentation, the first part is going to be representation of women in Marvel films. So I just have a few photographs of just some of the characters. Something that immediately always sticks out to me is their clothing. I always notice how most of them wear very thin, skin-tight clothes, even bodysuits that are super, super tight to their skin and really are meant to accentuate their breasts and their butt and their waist or legs or anything. Similarly, a lot of the different characters have cleavage showing, but to me it's just very unsettling because this specific depiction of women really reduces them down to just their physical appearance. And I found an article that by the authors Facciani and Vendemmia, and their scholarly article, they say that women in comic books are depicted in a hypersexualized way, with physical beauty often taking precedence over their achievements and non-physical qualities. And this really resonated with the way that I view the depiction of women, because it almost seems like they serve to kind of just merely a sexual purpose, and they're very objectified rather than the audience kind of highlighting them for their achievements as superheroes. So I want to focus on one character in particular, Natasha Romanoff, who's Black Widow, and her specific character in Age of Ultron. And so there is a scene where she's speaking to another character and she's describing her past. And she describes how she was, like, in quotes, sterilized. And it's a very unfortunate scene. It sticks with me because she specifically refers to herself as a, quote, monster because she's unable to conceive a child. And relating this to the social learning theory, I think that anybody who also is unable to biologically conceive a child or who identifies as a woman but doesn't have a period, anybody who kind of relates to that is almost being sent the message that you're, in quotes, a monster or you are not normal if you can't have kids. And this is very upsetting because it really merely just kind of reduces women to just their fertility and just their ability to conceive children, which is very unfortunate writing on that part. So moving on, I want to talk about the representation of men throughout Marvel films. So already looking at this in comparison to the representation of women, it's a very stark comparison because obviously almost all of the male characters are just extremely muscular. So something that I always notice when I'm watching, paying attention more to the male characters, is that they all kind of have the same body type. They all have the ideal male strong body type of these muscular arms, muscular legs, abs, fit and almost skinny, but not too skinny to the point where they could appear as weak, but obviously being fit enough where they're not, in quotes, overweight. And I want to bring up the social comparison theory when talking about the representation of men, because by representing men in this way, it sends a message to the male audience or anybody who identifies as male, that if you don't look like this, then you don't really measure up to the ideal male. And this is extremely damaging and extremely harmful, because when people see this ideal standard and if they don't look like that, people can feel extremely inadequate and feel like they don't measure up to this standard, which is just an extremely curated Hollywood ideal. Switching gears then to the representation of other races. These are just some images of the more villainous characters from the Iron Man trilogy. And so the three images on the right are all Middle Eastern actors. And then what I found to be interesting through my research is that the three on the left and the two on the right are actually white actors who are kind of made to appear more Middle Eastern through either the hair or the one on the top, the beard, and just the way that they're dressed and the way that they are speaking. It's very clear that they are being presented as people from Middle Eastern descent. And this creates this sense of mistrust of other cultures, obviously specifically Middle Eastern cultures, but it really reinforces a sense of xenophobia among the public, which is very obviously very wrong and very unfortunate. And so this was one of the main things that made me ask, what can I do? What can we do to kind of shed light on this, but also kind of try to help fix it? And so this is when I want to bring in social constructionism. And this emphasized the fact that being able to understand the kind of flaws and shortcomings, and being able to acknowledge them and understand how damaging they are and the ramifications that there can be in society. Being able to acknowledge that and understanding it will inherently lead to social change. And so that brings me to my next slide, which I want to highlight the things that the MCU is doing good right now. So on the left, we can see one of the newest shows, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The storyline basically follows that Captain America has been passed down from a white man to a black man, which is amazing for representation. It's always very, very good to see people of color in a strong leading role. Similarly, at the top middle, from one of the newest shows, WandaVision. Wanda's outfits now are obviously not meant to objectify her, and they kind of are more padded than original. They don't show off any of her cleavage, and so it really allows the audience to focus on her strengths as a superhero and her strengths as a character, rather than reducing her to merely her appearance. And then the bottom two are some of the future Marvel projects. The one in the middle is going to be the first Asian superhero, and then the one on the bottom right is going to be one of their upcoming shows. They cast a young Pakistani girl as the lead role. And so I think it's important to highlight that even though Marvel has a very, very long way to go, they are taking steps, and they're definitely trying to create a more diverse environment. So I just want to say thank you. That's the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much.